Finally, after years of procrastination, development, it is finally here. This is what you have all been waiting for. My tiny pulse rifle counter board has finally been re-engineered to include sound, and sound that really packs a punch. I have two options for the power amplifier, the TPA3131 or the TPA3132. The choice is yours which is used. The TPA3131 gives a respectable 8 watts of output, which is more than enough to drive most small speakers. The TPA3132, however, packs up to a massive 85 watt punch, depending on your power supply, which really needs a big speaker attached to it. Too big for fitting into a pulse rifle, but great for static displays, or wiring into a speaker attached to your belt, for example. I have the TPA3132 on this board, so I'm going to plug in a rather large speaker that I extracted from an old hi-fi speaker set some time ago. I'll add 2 buttons. These are just my test buttons. Oops. One for the trigger and one for the magazine. Which buttons you'd use in your build very much depends on your specific style of pulse rifle. These are just, as I say, my test buttons, which aren't ideal for most builds, but they're great for testing. Now all I need to do is add some power. Turn it on. And if you're listening on headphones at this point, you might want to turn the volume down a little. Okay, here we go. I don't know how well that's come across on the video, but with it in front of me here, it's loud. You can take my word on that. You can see how lively the speaker cone gets. Okay, that's enough audio for the moment. To create the audio, I've taken a short sample of the pulse rifle and chopped it up and looped it. This has allowed me to keep the sample size small so it fits into the main chip, which has quite limited storage, and means that the sound length always matches the amount of time that you're holding the trigger for. So you can have short bursts, or even empty the whole magazine into a virtual xenomorph in one go. I apologise for your eardrums now. It also adds the aftertouch to the end of the sample, so you get the nice reverb effect when you stop firing. The unconnected middle socket is to drive a muzzle flash LED. This needs an extra power driver circuit with it, but those haven't arrived from China yet. But I do have these rather nice bright LEDs to experiment with when the boards do arrive. These are mounted on 10mm diameter aluminium boards and should hopefully fit nicely into the end of any M41A barrel. Now, a word about power, and more specifically heat. Depending on the voltage of your power source, parts of this board do get rather hot. The problem is the LED driver. And it's the same problem that has always been there, even in the original non-sound version. The driver chip gets hot. The higher your input voltage, the hotter it gets. Traditionally, I have recommended keeping your input voltage low. A single lithium polymer battery at 3.7 volts, for example, to keep the heat to a minimum. Unfortunately, with the amplifier you can't do that, since it needs at least 4.5 volts to operate. I have turned down the brightness on the display to compensate somewhat, but it does still get rather warm. In an enclosed space, that heat could build up and become a problem, though I would hope it doesn't get so hot that it would melt the plastic of a 3D print. If you do find that it gets a little too hot, there is the option of adding a small heatsink to the back. I have an example here, although it is deeper than I would like. I have some more coming from China at the moment with a lower profile, but they actually come as a single long bar which I will need to slice into the right size. A heatsink can be attached using a thermally conductive adhesive pad, which you can find on eBay at a reasonable cost. If I start providing heatsinks, I will, of course, include the pad with it. If you do add a heatsink yourself, just be sure to keep it away from the metal pins of the LED display module. Building these counters is considerably more expensive and fiddly than the original non-sound design. To fit in the extra components, I have had to reduce the component size, which makes populating the board longer and more involved. Also, the circuit board itself is considerably more expensive to have manufactured, since it is now a 4-layer board. Because of this, I have decided that the best way of selling these is to take pre-orders for them, then build the boards up in small batches. That means that there will be a lead time on your order depending on the current demand and the supply of the components. Most notably, the circuit boards, which have to come all the way from China and take weeks to arrive, but some components have to come from America and can take almost a week to get here. I have enough circuit boards at the moment to build about 10 of them, and I will get more boards on order as soon as orders start coming in, so that lead times are kept as low as possible. As far as price goes, I'm looking at £50 each, including 5 pigtail connectors for you to easily wire into your design. There is a link in the description below to pre-order. I do have the ability now to create custom crimped cables as well, so if you would like me to create cables of a certain length, then just contact me through my website. I can also create customised variants of the boards, within reason. For example, I have been asked if I can make one without the amplifier, but with a line out instead, for connecting to a Bluetooth audio transmitter. Yes, that can be done, with the help of a couple of discrete jumper wires hidden under the display. Again, drop me a line through my website to discuss any special requirements you may have.